what committee members are we missing at this point?
I didn't see Kevin Stokes, Lee Martinson, or Michelle Kincaid join.
Kevin Stokes has just resigned from the committee.
Okay. And then Randy Holland from the planning board, I didn't see join.
John, it was my understanding that Kevin's resignation was going to be effective following town meeting. Isn't that not the case?
I thought it was March 15th.
Okay, well, we'll check.
I think Tina has the letter.
Okay.
Is Angela on? Yep, there she is. I got you, Angela.
Being 7 o'clock, I'd like to get started. First, I'd like to read Governor Baker's order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's COVID-19 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws C-30A-18, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to participate in the meeting via Zoom can do so by clicking this link. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter the meeting ID number 894-3168-5772, then press hashtag and press hashtag again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment. By following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad or by using their raise hand function on Zoom. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. In the event that despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide for real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting in the town's website as soon as we are able. This time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call vote. A roll call attendance. Ms. Manganelli?
Present.
Dugas?
Present.
Ms. Belizo? Muted, Marianne. Marianne, you muted.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid?
Present.
Levine?
Present.
Ms. Martinson?
Present.
Mr. Nelly?
Here, present.
Martina, would you like to do the roll call?
Do a little bit more time and stop.
I can't hear you so well.
Would you like to do the planning board roll call?
Oh, sure. Sean,
Present.
Terry,
Present.
Angela,
Present.
If I may interrupt for a moment, this is town council. If we can call the roll using full names first and last, please.
John Hannigan,
Present.
Terry Bolin,
Present.
Angela, what's your last name?
Marcolina.
Marcolina, there you go.
Present.
Rondi Holland, are you here?
Present.
All right. Mike Sorrentino, the chairman, is here.
Okay. John Doherty's here, and also Kevin Stokes.
Present.
Here. Thank you. At this point in time, I'd just like to remind everyone that identify yourself before you speak. And for members of the public, please not only identify yourself, but give us your residential address. At this point in time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Sorrentino.
Okay, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the planning board is holding this joint public hearing tonight to go over the zoning articles proposed for the warrant that will be held at the town meeting to be held on May 1st, 2021. We will address the zoning articles, starting with Article 46, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by creating a new brew pub use and amending Table 1 Principal Use Regulations as follows, or to take any action related thereto. We'll add a new section 3.5.21, brew pub. Restaurants licensed under the relevant state federal statutes to produce or sell beer and/or ale at the location and whose primary business is the sale and preparation of food to be consumed on the premises. Malt beverages, including beer, ales, and hard ciders produced on the premises may be sold to other establishments, but shall not to exceed 25% of the brew pub's production capacity. We will amend Table 1 Principal Use Regulations by adding a new use category 3.521 that is allowed in the neighborhood mixed use, general business, central business, and highway industrial zoning districts. Just as an explanation, this is a new use that would be allowed. This came from the Wilmington Economic Development Committee. And it's our goal of eliminating barriers for use that residents have expressed a desire for. Any questions?
This is Lee Martinson. I have a question related to the 25% volume sale to other places. My understanding of the state laws, there's no such restriction for anyone with a farmer brewer's license. Is that intended to supplant the state law related to that use?
Val, you want to answer that? I think we did have some discussion about this. There was a reason.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Valerie Gingrich, I'm the Director of Planning and Conservation. The intent is that the use would be primarily a restaurant. So we wouldn't see the farmer brewer license being used for this. It would be just a regular alcohol liquor license. And I think there's an extra license that they have to get through the ABC or whatever they are. So it wouldn't be a farmer brewer license. It would be just a regular liquor license. The idea was that it would be mostly a restaurant, but with the option for them to brew on site as well, but to a limited capacity for off-site sales, to make sure that it's less of an industrial use. It's more of a restaurant use with the ability to brew.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, this is John O'Neill, the IT Director. I would just like to remind any callers, if you do wish to speak and make a comment on any of the articles, you want to dial *9 on your telephone keypad, and that'll indicate to us that you wish to speak. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move on to Article 47. 47 is to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by deleting section 3.8.4 and amending line 3.5.5 of Table 1 Principal Use Regulations to allow general service restaurants as of the right in the neighborhood mixed use, general business, and highway industrial districts as follows, or to take any action related thereto. So it's to change the table. Basically, this article would allow general service restaurants as a right in the neighborhood mixed use, general business, central business, and highway industrial zoning districts instead of requiring a special permit. This article was also developed in conjunction with the Wilmington Economic Development Committee to eliminate barriers for uses that residents want to see more of. Any questions on this article? If not, we'll move on to the next article, Article 48. Article 48 is to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by amending section 6.6.8.1 as follows, or to take any other action related thereto. Special permit granting authority. The special permit granting authority, SPGA, under this bylaw shall be the Zoning Board of Appeals, except that the Planning Board shall be the SPGA for section 6.6.7.7, non-residential uses. Special permits shall be granted in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. Such special permit shall be granted if the SPGA determines, in conjunction with the other town agencies indicated in section 10.5.9, that the intent of the bylaw as well as its criteria are met. In making such a determination, the SPGA shall give consideration to the simplicity, reliability, and feasibility of the control measures proposed and the degree and threat to water quality which would result if the control measures fail. This article makes the planning board the special permit granting authority for non-residential uses proposing over 15% impervious coverage in the groundwater protection district. Currently, the Board of Appeals grants the special permits, but since commercial and industrial development already come to the planning board for site plan review, they can get the special permit while undergoing site plan review instead of needing to apply for an additional board, excuse me. So the idea is just to kind of streamline this a little bit, since the Board of Appeals normally waits until the planning board makes a ruling. So does anybody have any questions on Article 48? Seeing none, we'll move on to Article 49. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning map of the town of Wilmington by rezoning the following parcels from resident 20 to resident 10, or to take any other action related thereto. Map 19 parcels 13A, B, C, D, E, 14, 15, 16A, 17A, 17B, 18, 18A, 18B, 18C, 18D, 21, 22, 22A, 22B, 22C, 22D, 22E, and 23A. This article rezones the parcels around Mozart Ave, Bailey Road, and Marietta Ave from R20 to R10 to better reflect the existing lot sizes of approximately 10 to 13,000 square feet. This is kind of goes in conjunction with the planning board to try to rezone certain parts of town to go with the way they're configured. It would reduce the ability of people needing to constantly going for variances. Any questions on Article 49?
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask that you check with John O'Neill, the IT director, to make sure there's no one in the public that is looking to offer questions.
Mr. O'Neill, any questions from the public?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone right now. Thank you.
Okay. No questions, then we'll move on to Article 50. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into an agreement, the terms of which shall be determined by the selectmen to sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of all or part of the following described parcels. Map 40, Lot 100, Map 40, Lot 101. Is the presenter present to speak on this article?
Yes, we are present.
What would you like to say?
Okay, so good evening. We are asking the
Could you
town,
identify yourself, please? Just
Alina and Brendan Finn.
thank you.
And could you offer your address as well?
Sure, we currently live on 9 Bicknell Road in Billerica. But we are building a house on 15 Parker Street in Wilmington. So we are asking the town for the dispositions of those two parcels, map 40 lot 100 and 101. Both lots are 2,500 square feet each, and they're off of Morton Street, which is a paper road. The lots are directly behind parcel 4088, which is 15 Parker Street, on which we're building our new home. We also own the remaining lots directly behind our house. And those two additional lots would really allow us to square off our land and expand our backyard. We are not looking to create a backyard on that entire space or cut trees in that entire space. We actually really like the privacy that those trees provide, but we are really, what we are looking to do is to level off and expand approximately 15 feet beyond 15 Parker parcels so that we can have bigger backyard for our kids to enjoy. 15 Parker is a busier yellow line road, and those two lots would really give our kids access, direct access via Fremont Ave to a very safe neighborhood that's behind our house. Our kids wouldn't have to walk around to get there or cut through someone else's yard or town's property. So we're really hoping that, really to purchase them, and they would really make a difference to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. O'Neill, is there any questions from residents, audience?
Mr. Chair, there currently is not.
Okay.
Teresa Manganelli, the lots that she owns, or they own behind the home that they're currently building, were labeled as non-buildable. Is there a reason for that?
Are you asking us or are you asking the town?
Well, through the chairman, I'd like to ask you, yes.
Val, can you answer that?
Sure. So, while I'm not involved in that classification, the lots themselves wouldn't be buildable. They're too small. But I imagine grouped with other lots to create a buildable sized lot, there could be potential development.
Yeah, what is the zoning over there?
It's R20.
It's R20, right? Okay.
So you would need 20,000 square feet for a buildable lot with, I believe it's 125 feet of frontage. So those lots themselves, or even coupled together, wouldn't be a buildable lot, but potentially could be buildable if coupled with other land.
Thank you.
That land would have to be declared as surplus, correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, so the process, just to make sure everyone is familiar with it, is that the Property Review Board, which is comprised of a number of department heads, will be meeting tomorrow, I believe it is, to review the various parcels that are being requested to be disposed of. That group will make a recommendation as to whether each individual parcel that is being proposed should be deemed surplus to the town's needs. That recommendation will be provided to me, and then I will make a recommendation to the town meeting as to whether these parcels are in fact surplus to the town's need. And in addition, the assessor will establish a minimum value, which is the floor, if you will, for any offers for the purchase of each of these parcels. If any of the parcels are deemed surplus and town meeting authorizes the same, then there's a bid process where those individuals seeking to purchase the property must submit bids that are at least match the floor amount that the assessor established.
And Mr. Hall, just to be clear, right, there's several of these coming up, so you don't have to say that over and over again.
No, I
So
just thought I would
yeah,
lay
throw
that
that
out.
out
at the
early,
beginning.
right?
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you. Mr. O'Neill, are we okay? Can we move on to the next one? Any questions?
Mr. Chair, we do have a caller who wishes to speak. I'm gonna unmute them now.
Thank you.
Hello,
Yes, could you please identify yourself, give your name and address?
Laura Brophy, 21 Parker Street, Wilmington.
Thank you.
Hello, did you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I am in the home that is directly across from the new home being built. And so the lot that lies between us is the paper version of Fairmont Avenue. And I have no issue with the town lots being used for enjoyment of the property owner at 15. I do worry about future use if they're combined with other lots and become a buildable lot, and there's a desire to bring Fairmont through to Parker Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we comment?
Yes,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
We have no intention of building on that lot. We really just want to have a little bit larger backyard, considering that, the houses that they're built today, they are so close to the property line on the back of the house that there's really no backyard. So that is really our purpose. We have two very little kids and we just really want them to enjoy it.
I understand that, and as I stated, I have no issue with that. However, if that property is then sold to another owner, they could possibly be combined into other lots, and they would possibly desire to front on Fairmont Avenue and want to bring Fairmont Avenue through to Parker Street. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the traffic on Parker Street to get up to 129 at the end is a little congested. As you said, it's a double yellow line, and it's a cut through for most of the people in town and others traveling through the town. So they circumvent the congestion at the top where it meets 129 by taking a left on Laurel Street. And, it's a constant flow of traffic. And I guess I'm just concerned about then that happening to Fairmont.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what's required in order to bring a paper street forward. I don't even know if there's enough room there to do that. But that's my concern.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
Anyone
Chair,
else?
we do have another resident who wishes to speak.
Okay.
Am I up?
Yes, you are, sir.
Hi, David Romano, 417 Andover Street. Just a quick question. Does anybody know if it's that the combined square footage of those lots would even be subdividable if with the zoning that it has on it? Or is this really not an issue unless somebody else tries to go and gets it rezoned to some other? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
The lots themselves, there's two of them, and each are only 25 feet by 100 feet. So there's only 2,500 square feet per lot, which is well below the buildable land, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's below the buildable land in that area. And you can never get a house in either of those two lots, even if you combine them. And that's not our intention. We actually just want to make sure that we have access to the back development and to make sure that nobody else builds there actually. So individually or combined, they have this. It's not possible to build a house there. And
thank you.
I guess this is the chairman. I guess it would be a little clearer if we knew the total amount of your existing lot.
It is about half an acre. I want to say it is half an acre.
Okay, so then it meets current zoning.
And again, there's no intentions of ever building a house back there. We bought it so nobody else would build a house back there, actually.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else? John? Mr. O'Neill?
Mr. Chair, there is no one else.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we'll move on to Article 52. To see if the town will vote to disposition of town-owned land on Lake Street, map 55, lot 22A, 228A, 55-228A, or take any other action thereto. Is the petitioner here to present this article?
Sorry. Yeah. Michael O'Connor, 21 Lake Street, Wilmington.
So we are petitioning to buy that piece of land. It's right across the street from our house. We are third generation owners of this house, and his grandparents used to own right across the street. It's a very small, just a tiny little piece of property that's right across from us that we would like to be able to buy back and legally own, actually, so we can enjoy it. It's not big enough to build anything. It's not, that's not in our interest at all to build anything over there. We just want to be able to own it so that we can enjoy it and sit on it and keep it in our family. I think his grandparents sold it back to the town in like the 80s maybe for taxes, but his family has always taken care of that little piece of property right across the street, and we just would like to buy it back.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just for purposes of illustration, I don't know if we can bring that one up on the map, but it's a pie-shaped piece of property that's right on Silver Lake.
Jeff, we don't have any visuals for this particular
Okay.
article.
Bernard Nally speaking. How much property is there?
I believe it's 0.04 acres, which I don't know what that ends up equaling, unfortunately, but it's a very small piece.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions from the public, Mr. O'Neill?
There is not, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else have any questions? Again, you understand it would have to be declared as surplus, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll move on to Article 54. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaws and associated zoning map of the town of Wilmington by voting to rezone from residential 60 to residential 20, the following described parcel of land. The land known as 417 Andover Street, Wilmington, Mass, Middlesex County, Mass, as more fully described in the deed, Middlesex North Registry of Deeds. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but is the petitioner here to speak?
I am. And
Okay.
this is David Romano, 417 Andover Street. And I just got a quick presentation to try to give you a little history. As the moderator had stated, I'm asking to go from R60 to R20 at that location. Next slide, please. The agenda for tonight will be introduction, property location, property layout survey, and a quick briefing, reasons for requesting the zoning of the property, what the zoning will not do, summary and questions. Next slide, please. So the quick history of this is that it was carved off in the 1940s. That area used to be all R60, and as you can see, this is kind of what they went by in the 1940s. Not really a lot of detail, not the level of what we do today. So I think there was a little bit of ad hoc stuff going on. In any event, some key points to look at is this is how narrow the lot is. Next slide, please. And this is just the 50,000-foot overview to give you a location. There's 93, 125. My house is right here up where that's called the duck pond. It's actually mostly in Andover. And it's my house is literally right across from the town forest. Next slide, please. And this is the zoning map. So any of these tan areas these light tan areas you see are R20. And the rest of the dark brown is R60, but there are R20 right next to me. And then, as you can see, as indicated, R-3-15 is the lot in question. Next slide, please. And then this is a recent survey of my property done in 2020. And as I said before, the property was most likely created, from a larger parcel back in the 40s. It's not really clear if this would have been conforming or not conforming. The key elements to here that I'd like you to look at is the side setbacks and the width of the lot. The width of the lot across is only 100 feet. And those contour lines at the back, they actually back up to Foster's Pond. So there's actually water behind me. Next slide, please. And what this would do for me is that currently it's currently zoned R60. So the items in red are non-conforming. And if I get R20, the green will go to conforming. And actually the reason that 20 foot is in yellow under the R20 is because I think what I'm going to be doing is rebuilding the house potentially, is, you know, that's my hope. And I think what will happen is that will then be conforming when I rebuild the house. And there's nothing I can do about the square footage, but it would be a lot closer. I mean, there's a big difference between a requirement of 60,000 square feet and 20,000 square feet. And I'm at about 19,166. And it kind of goes back to that other discussion earlier on in the meeting where they talked about the town wanting to sort of get the zoning a little bit more in line with what actually the properties are. Next slide, please. So the reasons for requesting the rezoning is I'm going to be rebuilding in the near future, and the shape of the lot and the side setbacks, I mean, that will give me another 5 feet on either side of the property. So I'll be able to actually have a much wider design. It's still going to be a single family home. It can be nothing else but that. And just generally, actually, I did not talk to the town ahead of time, but again, going back to that earlier conversation, it'll potentially reduce the workload of the town and staff, you know, with addressing special permits and variances. And it may reduce the red tape for residents, because like myself, I mean, you know, I have to go through the rezoning request. Otherwise, I have to get a special permit or whatever that happens to be, whatever the town requirements are. Next slide, please. So what it will not do, there's obvious concerns. We've heard some of them tonight already. It will not allow, the property can't be subdivided. It's 0.44 acres. It's very narrow. It backs up to Foster's Pond. So there's no access, and it does not provide any access to any other properties. So there is no chance that this could be used to be, you know, this rezoning is not going to bring up any of those issues at all. Really, the real gist of what it'll do for me is that it'll give me setbacks on my left and right side from 25 feet down to 20, which will give me a larger building envelope for when I design the home. Next slide, please. And just in summary, you know, the property is 417 Andover Street. It was created in the 1940s, and it was zoned R60. You know, R60 is not the appropriate standard for this, but, you know, for this lot in this day and age. R20 would be more appropriate. The new designation will reduce the side setbacks to from 25 feet to 20 feet, and this will increase the size of the building envelope of the property and allow me greater latitude to be able to, with the, you know, with my architect. Next slide, please. I hope that was painful. Painless, because it was painful for me. Do we have any questions?
I have a question. Can you go back to the slide that kind of showed the overview of other houses there?
Yep.
I mean, did you approach any of your neighbors to see if?
Yeah, they're all in full support. And
were there any others that might want to have been rezoned? I guess.
Well, these two properties to the north were rezoned and back some time ago. Lee is my neighbor here. He's in full support of it. And across the street at 420. I mean, I don't know anybody who's going to be. It doesn't
that's not the point I was getting at. We usually like to do an area, you know, to try to avoid a spot zone of one resident.
Yeah, and I talked previous to the meeting, I had a conversation with Director Gingrich, and the spot zoning, you'd have to really address this with her directly, but we talked, she would, I don't want to speak for her, you're gonna have to talk to her directly, but it was less of an issue of spot zoning with if I had tried to do R15, which would make the property completely compliant, that would have been a problem with spot zoning, but because it abuts R20, I think what her, which she was indicating to me was it would probably be less of a problem, but no guarantees, right? And we could direct that to Ms. Gingrich if you wish.
Okay. Director Gingrich, would you like to speak on the subject matter?
Sure. Mr. Romano and I talked about how if he was rezoning, asking to rezone to R20, it would be an extension of that R20 zone that's to the north of his parcel, rather than, making it, creating an R10 or proposing an R10 zoning where there's no R10 zoning in the vicinity.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. O'Neill? is there
Mr.
any
Chair, there are
question?
no members of the public who wish to speak.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to Article 55, to see if the town will vote to acquire land behind 12 Ohio Street. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, right here.
Could you state your name and your address, please?
Tanya and Carlos Miranda, 12 Ohio Street, Wilmington.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
So we purchased our home about a year ago, and coming from the city, we wanted to give our kids a great backyard because we didn't have one in the city. So there is 2 lots behind our home, and I believe it's lot 611 and 610. I think in total it's maybe 6,000 square feet. And we just wanted to add it to our backyard and clean up the area. There's lots of downed trees here, and just make it a safe environment for our kids to play in. And we did speak to all our neighbors. We went to every house, and everybody was really excited to, possibly see this area cleaned up and kind of just match the neighborhood. That's it. So yeah, there's a lot of down trees and branches, and we've tried to make it, as safe as possible for the kids, but.
And that's after some cleaning.
Yeah. When we first moved here, it looked a lot worse than that. So our yard right now consists of all septic tank. So we can't really, put a swing set or a pool back there for the kids, without having to move it if something was to happen to the septic tank.
And the placement of the septic tank is from the plans that we got was roughly around dead center of the space that we have now.
Okay. I guess my only question here is the way this is kind of drawn in here. Is this lot extend into your neighbor's lot?
It does not. It's actually it starts 15 feet from our deck. And our neighbor's lot is completely, fenced off. They have their plans. So from what we know, it was someone who lives in Pennsylvania's lot, and they just kind of never took care of it, from what we heard from our neighbors anyway.
Yeah.
It was home. It's kind of about the same as everybody else's.
Yeah, so I mean, if we were to able to acquire this lot, it would make our backyard the same size as everybody else's in the neighborhood.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe I ought to rephrase that. Say, anyone in attendance have any questions? Mr. O'Neill, is there anyone with questions on this?
There's not, check that. There is a caller. I'm gonna unmute them now. Caller. I'm gonna unmute them.
Hello, could you state your name and your address, please?
Caller.
Can you hear me? It's Lisa Roach, 16 Ohio Street.
Yes.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
said it 3 times. I apologize.
Oh, we didn't hear it the first time. Go ahead.
I am the direct abutter on the side, and I just had a question. If this were to happen, would there be any chance of anything being buildable on that lot in the back, as in a structure?
We don't have any plans of building anything back there at all.
Oh, no, I understand. I'm well aware. We've spoken in the past. I know what their intentions are, and I think it's great for their children. My question is, down the road, if someone were to come in, could they do that? Would that make that lot buildable in the rear section? Any chance of anything being buildable on that lot in the back?
Director Gingrich, you don't believe that that would be a buildable lot, do you? I don't think it would give them enough land, other than a
lot-
shed maybe going there. What?
Right, so the lot doesn't meet zoning for a buildable lot in itself. And even combined with the other lot, it doesn't meet zoning.
Okay, that was my question. Combined with the other lot, would it ever have that opportunity? And your answer is no?
That's right.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else, Mr. O'Neill?
Currently, no, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder for any callers, if you do wish to speak, you can press *9 on your telephone keypad, and that will notify us that you would like to say something.
Again, to the petitioner, you understand that it has to be declared as surplus land, right?
Yes.
You do. Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next article. Article 56. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into an agreement, the terms of which shall be determined by the Selectmen, to sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of any land within the parcel depicted by Assessment Map 6, Parcel 149 and 150, in which the town might claim a right, title, or interest to, therefore, determination made by the town manager that such land is not needed for any municipal purposes in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 16 of the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised, and other applicable law, or take any other action thereto. A true copy of Map 6 is on file with the town clerk's office. Is the petitioner present to speak?
Yes, I am. My name's Craig Newhouse. I live at 5 Emma Way, Wilmington. And these lots, I own the lots that are highlighted in green. And I'm interested in purchasing the yellow area on this map. It's shown as 6-149. And that's kind of in the middle area of the green. This will allow one buildable lot. In the current zoning is R20. That total area of the lot that's 149, 150 from the town include added to the lots that I own in green, the total square footage would be approximately 30,000 square feet, which again would hold one buildable lot with a favorable configuration compared to the way it is. Thank you.
And which streets are actually streets and which streets are actually paper streets there?
So that's kind of off of Burlington Ave on the Burlington end, Route 62 on the Burlington end. And on the plan, it shows Mary Street has a portion of the road that is constructed. And does that answer your questions?
So Stanley Street is just a paper street at this time.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone present have any questions? Mr. O'Neill, is there any questions from the public?
Mr. Chair, we have no questions from the public.
There being no more questions, and we'll move on to Article 57.
Thank you.
See if the town will vote to dispose of town-owned property at 848 Woburn Street, Wilmington. Is the petitioner here to speak?
Chairman Sorrento, yes. My name is Keith Edwards with Brookfield Properties. We're the owner of the former Wilmington Cold Storage at 12 Industrial Way. We are seeking to acquire the land that's to the west of the Wilmington Cold Storage that is at 848 Woburn Street. We acquired this building and this property in December of 2020, so about 3 months ago, from Mr. Peter Lewis. And we are currently in the midst of investing capital into this property, including new roofs, parking lots that we all have planned. And as we look to invest in the property and modernize the facility, we were looking to remove the automobile parking from the truck court area on the south side, which is at Industrial Way, and to move the automobile parking to the west of the building there at Woburn Street. Really, it's for a life safety and functionality of the property to get pedestrians and automobiles out of the truck.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. O'Neill, is there anyone with questions?
There is not,
No,
Mr.
this
Chair.
is
Go ahead.
Philip Berry, 133 Salem Street, Boston, Massachusetts. I am with Cushman & Wakefield representing Brookfield Properties in the leasing of 12 Industrial Way. And just to add some context there, to cater to what is now the modern industrial distribution flex tenants in the market, separating the loading area where there is daily truck traffic of 53 footers, box trucks, 24 footers, sprinter vans. Needless to say, there is a lot of in and out traffic and also products coming to and from the warehouse, and to ensure that there is employee safety on a daily basis and to cater to what these tenants need that are currently active in the market, the on-site circulation, the vehicle separation, guard checks, security, truck traffic, all become, a major component on a, daily basis. And that is, the value of what that 848 Woburn Street would add to us, because we would not only be able to maximize the building, but ensure the safety and the proper truck flow for not only Brookfield Properties, but the town of Wilmington as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, this would have to be declared as surplus property by the town. Thank you.
This was, in our initial conversations with your colleagues, was deemed surplus. This parcel was originally part of 2/12 Industrial, and now 12 Industrial. The ownership before Peter Lewis chose to sell it off to the town when he was asked. And then when Peter Lewis and his son acquired the building in the late 1900s, they did not see a need for the parcel, but this small little, 15,000 square foot parcel originally was 12.
Understood. Anybody have any
Thank you.
questions? You're welcome. And one more time, Mr. O'Neill, we okay?
We are. No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We will move on to Article 58. To see if the town of Wilmington will vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Wilmington and an associated zoning map of the town of Wilmington by voting to rezone from general business to neighborhood mixed use the parcels land identified as parcels 11 and 13 on the town of Wilmington Assessors Map 40.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Robert Peterson for the petitioner on this article, Jonathan Main. Mr. Main is a Wilmington resident of Chestnut Street, and he's the owner of parcels 40-11 and 4013, as shown in the visual that Mr. O'Neill has on the screen. To put it simply, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Main is seeking to rezone this parcel from general business to neighborhood mixed use. As the neighborhood mixed use designation for this parcel would allow for the construction of residential housing on this parcel in lieu of commercial development that would be allowed on this parcel. Mr. Main is an experienced residential developer. He's developed buildings similar to the visual that's shown here. That building that you see is very similar to a building that Mr. Main has recently constructed on North Avenue in Wakefield, directly across from Lake Quannapowitt. And that building would be located roughly adjacent to Yentiles Farm, which is parcel 9 as shown on the assessors map that Mr. O'Neill just put on the screen. In general, Mr. Chairman, we have discussed this with the planning department. We feel that the development of this parcel, it does have challenges, portions of it are wet. The development of this parcel as a residential development in lieu of commercial development would be much more beneficial to the town and to the area in particular, as the parcel is located directly across from the entrance of Yentiles Park.
Okay. You good, Mr. Peterson?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this? Director Gendrich, would you like to speak on this one? Or are you okay?
I think I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. O'Neill, do we have anyone who has any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, we have no questions.
Mr. Chair, I would just ask about the wetlands. I don't know to what degree there's been any evaluation of the wetlands, but my understanding was that that area was quite wet, and that there would not be much in the way of development that could happen there. Has there been any kind of an assessment done of the property there?
May I answer that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may, Mr. Peterson.
And I appreciate the question from the town manager. As luck would have it, Mr. Main's degree, undergraduate and graduate degrees are in the field of environmental sciences. He paid a significant amount of money for that parcel, Mr. Chairman, knowing what the wetlands limitations of it are. And he's very confident that the property can be developed in the manner that he's presenting to the town this evening. In other words, you didn't buy the property blind, so.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to answer the question. And Mr. Main is here this evening. I'm sure he can expound on my answer, should he so desire.
Hi, Mr. Hall. Oh, sorry. Do you mind if I answer now?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll
Thanks.
save my question until you're done.
Oh, no problem. Mr. Hall, how are you? Jonathan Main, 398 Chestnut Street in Wilmington. How are you?
Good.
So as Bob mentioned, there were 2 previous developments that I have constructed in Wakefield, Massachusetts that are located on North Ave. Both of those projects were abutting wetlands and had very similar type of issues that needed to get worked through. But I worked with the town to, develop something that was, responsible and also didn't hinder any of the wetlands and didn't encroach on any of the wetlands.
Thank you.
So this is the chairman, if it's okay. Who wanted to speak? Was that someone? Lee, did you want to speak?
Yeah, Lee Martinson, 99 Marion Street. We saw a representative picture of what the building might be. Exactly how big and how many units are we talking? Has a traffic study been done? As we all know, Cross Street is very short and can be very challenging to get across at times. And with the money going into the Butters Road Bridge within, I believe it's a year, 2022 or something like that. I'm just curious what the traffic impact is and what the plans are in terms of mitigating that.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in here, Bob, if you want.
No, John, I will expound when you're done. Go right ahead.
Thanks. So to answer your question on the size of the building and number of units, we're really not sure yet. That would obviously be heavily dependent on the wetlands line. So we've actually had a botanist go out and flag the wetlands. We haven't filed for any ANRAD quite yet. So to answer the question, I know it's not a great answer, but we don't have the number of units yet that we'd be able to fit on the site. We would obviously need approval from the town for that. The goal here is to just try to get the zoning changed to see if the town would support moving from a commercial type development across from the park to something more of a residential development. And then both projects that were done in Wakefield, we actually hired a traffic advisory committee to be able to come out and provide a traffic impact to the town prior to the development, which is something that we would be doing prior to plan approval.
Yeah, if speaking as the chairman here, you would, there would have to be a peer review on the wetlands. There would be a peer review on the traffic. There'd be quite a bit. So I think that from a planning board perspective, I think there would be a lot of discussion about changing the zoning and how it affects surrounding zones and how it affects the town in general. So I think a little bit more than what we would discuss right now. So you want to follow up?
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but since you quote didn't buy the property blind, I'll just ask a direct question. How many units do you have to put in to make it a break-even project for you?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I mean, construction costs have varied over the last couple years, so that number can fluctuate. I'm really not sure yet on the exact number because it's heavily dependent on the actual construction costs versus kind of, without getting too in detail, with the revenue that would be generated from the building. So I don't know the answer to that quite yet.
What is the number that you used in your model to decide you wanted to buy the property?
Oh, I stress tested the model across a number of units, and it ranged anywhere from 15 to 25 units was kind of the range that I looked at when I stress tested. I stress tested it lower and a bit higher too. So, I would say somewhere in that range would be a safe assessment.
All right, thank you.
I will say this, Mr. Main, I will give you points for not blaming COVID. So for the price going up. So
that defense gets old after a while.
Yes, it does. So, Mr. Peterson, are you okay? Did you want to expand on anything?
I am fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, are we still good? Oh, Mr. Kyra, would you like to speak? Sure.
Yeah,
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, it's Kevin Kyra. Just a quick question. Is the development apartments, or are they going to be condominiums? And will there be an affordable component to it?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, it would be apartments. So both of the buildings that I've developed in Wakefield, I believe in building and holding. So, it's in my best interest to build something that I like and that's well built. There is no intention to build condos and to sell them. So there would be a buy and hold. And then to answer your second question, it would be, up to the town. Obviously, we would follow the regulations that are required for low-income housing with any new development.
Director Gendrich, wouldn't there be a percentage required?
Yes, that's right. It would be 15% of the units would need to be affordable.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Mr. Kyra?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr.
You're
Chairman,
welcome.
may I make
Thank
one
you, Mr.
last
May.
comment?
Sure, Mr.
I just would like to point out to the board that this property is zoned, currently zoned general business. So there are many uses available to Mr. Main on the site. He just feels that the development of this parcel as residential property, as opposed to a commercial use across from Yentiles, would be in the best interest of all parties. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Hey. Okay. Not seeing any, I think we'll move on to Article 59. Thank you. See if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into an agreement, the terms of which shall be determined by the selectmen to sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of all or part of the following described parcels. Following a determination by the town manager that the land is not needed for any municipal purposes and in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 16 of the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised, and other applicable law, the parcel being located on Aldrich Road and described in the town of Wilmington assessors records as map 9, lot 56, or take any action thereto. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, I am.
You're up. State your name and your address, please.
Michael Falkingham, 203 Aldrich Road.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm just seeing this parcel of land is being landlocked. There's no way into it from Aldrich. And I just wanted it for a little added extra land to my property.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Mr. O'Neill, is there anyone with any questions on this one?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any.
Okay. Petitioner, you understand it has to be declared as surplus, right? You understand the process?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no questions. We'll move on to Article 60. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw and associated zoning map of the town of Wilmington as follows. By rezoning from residential R60 to highway industrial, HI, the land shown on parcel 2A on the assessors map R1. The land shown as parcel 19A on assessors map R2, and the land shown as parcel 24 and 24A on assessors map 103, and further by rezoning from the general industrial to highway industrial, the land shown as parcel 1A and assessors map R1, all of which premises are a portion of the land described in a deed recorded Middlesex North District Registry of Deeds in Book 15876, page 245, or do anything in relation thereto. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Mr. Chairman, for the record, Michael Newhouse of 136 Glen Road. I also maintain a law practice at 80 Main Street. I'm joined this evening by Michael Kyra, who with me represents North American Realty LLC. It is the owner of the property that's the subject of the article. And we're also joined by Casey Birch of Solely Engineering. And if I could ask Mr. O'Neill to enable Mr. Birch to share some slides. If it please the board, I'd like to ask Mr. Kyra to offer some additional thoughts, and then I would like to finish up with some additional explanation about the request.
But before we do that, Mr. Newhouse, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Does Article 61 go with Article 60, or does it stand on its own?
It is related to it. It stands on its own, but it's related to it.
Should we discuss it at the same time? You can explain that, or?
Be happy to do that as we go through. That would be great.
That would be good. Thank you very much. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay. Mr. Kyra? Mike, are you unmuted?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can now.
We can or cannot?
Can.
We can.
Okay. I don't know if you can see me, but you're not missing much.
It's a joke in there somewhere, but go ahead.
Someplace, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the rezoning article. Along with Attorney Newhouse, I am representing North American Realty, whose property is the subject of the proposed rezoning. North American owns approximately 40 acres of land on Route 125, directly across from Ballardvale Street. near the Route 93 125 interchange. They also own a small 3-acre parcel further north, but on the opposite side, or the Ballardvale Street side of Route 125, which is a part of this rezoning, but not a part of any contemplated development. In early 2020, we were contacted by the property owners asking if we would assist them in their efforts to rezone the property in such a way that would be compatible with the interest of the town. You may recall that a similar petitioned article was submitted for the 2020 annual town meeting, but was subsequently withdrawn after consultation with town administrative officials who at the time expressed an interest in acquiring a portion of the property for enhanced aquifer protection. That portion being the back parcel designated as R1-1, which comprises 13.2 acres. At our recommendation, our client agreed to delay the rezoning request until this year in order to work with the town in an effort to accommodate the town's environmental interests. As a result, we revised our request by substantially reducing the scope of the rezoning and by the submission of a companion article, which you just referenced, Mr. Chairman, which would gift to the town the 13.2 acre parcel that abuts town-owned property. That, according to DPW Superintendent Michael Woods, has been on his acquisition radar for some time. It is our judgment that the passage of both articles would not only foster appropriate economic development in an ideal area of town and would be complementary to similarly zoned parcels across the street, as well as meet the criteria for development in the Highway Industrial District. It would also satisfy the environmental objectives as outlined to us by town officials to improve aquifer protection and to do so at no cost to the town. Finally, if I may just give you a word about the property owner, who is Dr. Farabaz Massey. He has established a record in Wilmington as a good, solid corporate citizen. Dr. Massey is a scientist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist who founded IntelliSense Corporation located on Johnston Road and is recognized as a world-renowned expert in the field of micro-electromechanical systems. His success has enabled him to establish his own foundation, whose mission is to make significant improvements in education, health, arts, literature, and science through the concept of venture philanthropy. He serves on numerous nonprofit boards and currently serves as a member of the MIT Corporation, the Board of Fellows of Harvard Medical School, and engineering advisory boards at USC, Portland State University, and MIT. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I would request that Attorney Newhouse be recognized to address specific components of the rezoning request and preliminary conceptual development plans.
Sure, Mr. Newhouse, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So the slide that is on the screen is representative of the current zoning districts. I would note that R1-6A, which is the bright yellow 19.39 acre piece, that parcel is also zoned R60 currently, but with the town's overlay system on the GIS map, it colors it yellow because it's town-owned property. So that is relevant insofar as the future plans and the prospective gift by way of the other article that you'd mentioned, Mr. Chairman. Casey, could I see the next slide, please? So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the slide in front of you now is representative of what the zoning district map would look like if this article, and in fact, if both articles are passed at town meeting, and namely the subject property and the lion's share of it being R2-19A and R1-2A, they would be highway industrial zoning district, which is identical to the property directly across the street. And for folks who may not be oriented, directly across the street at 200 Ballard Vale, that's what people often refer to as the AGFA property. And that parcel in front, which is 196 Ballard Vale, that parcel is currently finishing up the development. That's where the new hamburger place is. So, so just to orient folks, it is directly across the street from property that is already zoned highway industrial, and the parcel that would be gifted to the town, that R1-1, that 13 plus acres, would then be contiguous to what the town already owns. Next slide, please, Casey. In front of you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is just a simple color-coded copy of the principal use regulations. You'll notice what we've highlighted in pink are uses that are prohibited in the highway industrial zone, which for the purposes of our discussion would not include any residential use, would not include any auto service, car washes, or motor vehicle dealerships. As we will show in a couple of concept plans momentarily, the preferred concepts for development include a retail store, a site either under 30,000 or over 30,000 square feet, or a combination thereof, a limited service restaurant, general service restaurant, and most notably the prospect of a hotel. What you see highlighted in the orange color, Mr. Chairman, are various uses that are not necessarily preferred by our client, but certainly we are obliged to recognize that those are prospective uses that are permitted either as a matter of right or by special permit. Casey, next slide, please. Mr. Chairman, this is the first of three conceptual plans that our client has engaged Solely Engineering to draw. This first slide shows a proposed hotel with a proposed restaurant in front. One would characterize the concept of that proposed restaurant in front as a general service restaurant with 100 seats or more. And then on the same site, but a little different pad, is a couple of smaller restaurants, less than 3,000 square feet in terms of the structure. These concept plans, Mr. Chairman, have been generated by the engineering firm with an eye towards compliance with parking regulations and respecting wetlands and other resource areas that have been identified on the site. Next slide, please, Casey. Second concept plan that I'd noted as a preferred possibility, preferred concept, is a retail facility of up to 60,000 square feet. And that concept may prove compatible with a couple of the smaller limited service restaurants that also appeared on the prior concept plan. Next slide, please, Casey. And the last slide, in terms of a concept plan and a possible development scenario, would include that same 60,000 square foot retail facility with a separate 3-story medical office facility. So those are three of the preferred concepts, and certainly our client, in terms of prospective development, is interested in hearing more from the community, but certainly all of these would be permitted uses under the Highway Industrial District. Next slide, Casey. And again, just to leave the board and anybody who's interested that may be viewing this meeting, this aerial photo shows the project site. I should have mentioned that the proposed development area is approximately 9 acres. And, you know, that is sufficiently set back from any residential neighborhoods. You can see the proximity to Route 93 and to the off-ramp, which literally abuts the property. And it's across from those big facilities, 200 Ballardville Street, and the neighbors across Ballardville Street as well. So, Mr. Chairman, if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And with respect to the prospective gift in the other companion article, I would just note for the board that if the rezoning is adopted by town meeting, then there would only be one really condition that that I would have to insist that my client bear in mind before making the gift, and that would be that client would be able to get a curb cut permit off of Route 125. As long as he's able to secure that permitting, then he's committed to making that gift to the town and looks forward to doing so.
So, Mr. Newhouse, if Article 60 was not to pass town meeting, Article 61 goes away?
Well, Article 61 wouldn't go away. We would still ask the town to pass it, but to be perfectly candid, that article would just authorize the selectmen to accept the gift. Would have to take a look at alternative development plans and whether or not the area is necessary. Okay. Without making promises, I can only say that our client is very much aware of the town's interest in protecting its aquifer. And with this kind of a development scenario, he's absolutely committed to it. I just have encouraged him, you know, to make sure that if this doesn't pass, he has to be certain that he's not giving up so much area that he's you know, seriously diminishing the value of his property.
Yes. So, and I know you're well aware that town meeting goes by random selection. So what happens if 61 comes out before? So I guess you answered that by just saying that you're not actually gifting it. You're just giving the selectmen the ability to gift it. Is that
to accept the gift? Correct.
To accept the gift.
Yep.
All right. So in your conceptual plans, has there been any? I understood you said it would all depend upon getting the curb cut. So you had engineering. Do you have the distance from the off ramp of 93? You think that you would be able to get a curb cut? I bring that up only because a previous rezoning that happened a while back at a different area, not in this location, but that became kind of like the breaking point after a lot of time was spent. So,
right. All right. So next item on our agenda.
I'm happy to give Mr. Solly or Mr. Birch the opportunity to answer that. I would just answer that by saying that we would by no means guarantee that that's going to happen, but that our client has spent a considerable amount of resources and time and energy to this point, even to develop these conceptual plans, to get a wetlands delineation completed, and to do all those things. So his level of confidence based on the advice of his engineers is pretty darn good because he spent those resources to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Does anyone have any questions?
Gary DePalma, 46 Wayne Road.
Hey, Gary.
Good evening. I have concerns with this project. The area is becoming so dense as it is now, with traffic issues. It's so congested, and this is the first I know I've heard of. I was assuming that it was going to be you were going to look at a hotel. I would oppose this article until we know exactly what wants to go in there and who, what type of hotel. I know you're not going to get a name right away, but I'd be very concerned with this project because of the density of the air of 125. The traffic on 125 is already horrible, and there's no let up in sight for it. I think it's going to just cause more of issues up in that area. But that would be my concerns right now, would be with all the traffic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have a question?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, can I jump in?
Sure.
So what's the, I guess, what's the rationale behind the other 3 parcels that are included in the rezoning? The one across 125 and then a couple that look like there was Ainsworth Road.
Yeah, that's a good question. So R1-1A, the pie-shaped piece that's across Route 125, it's not part of the development scenario in any case, and we believe that it's of limited value from a development standpoint, because that does in fact it's contiguous with highway industrially zoned property next to it on the opposite side. We thought that it made sense from a general planning perspective to include it. I would say the same with 103-24. 103-24A, I actually could not find on the GIS map at the time that we created the petition. Since then, I've had conversations with the town engineer, and he's helped me to locate that. Frankly, when we offer the motion at town meeting, we're probably going to exclude 103-24A.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah, it's across Woburn Street.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at the GIS map that's available to the public, and you look at it at a very high level, at a high scale, you don't notice that 103-24A. So I actually needed some help to even locate that on the GIS map.
May I speak? I just wanted to, it's Michael Kyra. I just wanted to address the concerns expressed by Selectman DePalma, and I certainly appreciate that. But as the planning board will recall, in 2008, the town established the highway industrial district specifically to keep traffic off the main arteries and off the main roadways. As a matter of fact, the changes allowed us to do things like Target, where before a large box retail would only be going on the main streets. The industrial district change was done so that we could appropriately put larger commercial opportunities at the outskirts of town, precisely where they should be, to accommodate the traffic, which would essentially be coming right off of Route 93. So specifically, that had been the goal and the objective of the planning board at that time. And certainly that area could utilize those kinds of amenities as you've seen crop up over the last several years. So I just would want folks to keep in mind, to bear in mind that areas, that area right now is zoned, as you know, for residential. And that really is not where you want to put residents right off the highway, even though we are zoned for that purpose right now. That's where I think you want responsible development that traffic can well handle right off of Route 93. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. Hang on a sec. Who wants to speak?
Hi, it's actually on behalf of the applicant. My name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Massachusetts with Soley Engineering and part of the project team. And in regards to the traffic concerns, and I know there were comments before about the non-access highway line. So we have been in communication with the DOT, and they would have a additional review authority here. We are confident that we'd be able to prepare a plan and provide any offsite mitigation that would be required to accommodate a development on this parcel. And frankly, the current access to this parcel without that access to the signal on Ballard Vale is actually through Ainsworth Road, which is a town road that is in somewhat disrepair, which comes through more residential neighborhoods towards the rear of the site. And from a development opportunity standpoint, to allow or to create an opportunity for this parcel to be developed with access onto 125 kind of changes that traffic pattern and changes that potential impact. So it's focused on those main roads that are kind of already established to accommodate this type of development. So I think that, the alternative to, from a development standpoint and bringing all that traffic through the rear of the parcel and through some of those other residential streets may have other undue impacts than if the commission were to view this zone change favorably.
Okay, thank you. I would like to follow up. So what Mr. Kyra said was true, but it was also back then when we made this zoning change back there, there was a lot more office space. And one of the intents of changing the zoning was so we could put in the hamburger joints so someone didn't have to drive across town to go get lunch. The idea was to, you had this great amount of people working in these offices to try to stay there. If they needed to, I think one of the comments at the time was if they need to get their muffler done, they could drop off their car and go to work. So that was the idea of kind of changing that zoning a little bit. Now, since that time, things have changed. There's not as much office space and things have kind of switched. So I think that's something that as a board we'll have to look at the overview of the whole area and kind of take that all into account. I would just say this is a interesting development and something that was going to take a little more discussion than we'll probably have tonight. That's for sure. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hey, Martinson, 99 Marion Street. I just want to make sure I understand my town right and something Mr. Soley said. There is a traffic light right there. And what you're asking for is a curb cut to control the traffic and access it where the traffic light is, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I had just a couple of quick questions, if I may.
Only if you recognize the chairman, you can. So go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I was unclear on exactly where that small parcel was. It's on across the street from North Street. Is that up near the next light up from Ballard Vale? And then the second thing is there a preferred plan that the developer wants? Those conceptual plans that you presented, there were several. Is there a preferred plan that the developer would like to execute there over any other one?
I'll let Mr. Newhouse answer that, but I would say it's probably a little early, but go ahead, Mr. Newhouse.
Right.
Unless
so,
you want to defer to someone else.
Just by way of context, Dr. Massey purchased this property many years ago. He is interested in developing something that obviously is marketable for him, but is marketable in a way that suits the town well. So these various concepts that we've put forward from our team's standpoint make sense from a planning perspective, that they're the kind of uses that you would expect to be hundreds of feet off of Route 93. And from an economic development standpoint, I heard the chairman mention earlier, how COVID has affected things. There's no question that that going forward, the town is going to be interested in responsible economic development, as evidenced by the creation of the committee. So from our team's perspective, this is a sincere effort to put out concepts that we think would appeal to the town and the town administration and the townspeople. And so, in direct answer to the question, we don't have any one plan. We're looking to to explore all of those possibilities. In terms of the question that was asked about the parcel, Casey, can you put up either slide 1 or 2, please? So as the speaker had asked about the other parcel, and I'm not clear on which one that he's referring to, but I think he's probably referring to 103-24, which is toward the bottom of the screen. And that is, as I understand it, historically an abandoned railroad bed, which is owned and is contiguous to the parcel. That is included in the rezoning. 103-24A is a parcel that is so remote, I guess you would say, in terms of distance, that it doesn't even show on this screen. And that's the one that we would we intend to omit from the motion at the floor of town meeting.
Thank you. I thought you had mentioned that there was a small parcel across 125 up near Woburn Street or something like that. My mistake.
No, that's okay. We did say across 125, but not near Woburn Street. And it's where that cursor is hovering in that blue triangular piece. That is across Route 125 that is adjacent to the big building that exists at 181 Ballardvale.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. O'Neill, how are we doing?
Mr. Chair, we have no members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay. If there are no further questions, we will move on to the next article.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Article 62, to see if the town will vote to amend section 3.5.8 of table 1 of the principal use regulations of the town of Wilmington. Funeral homes by deleting the word no under the zoning classification R10 and by replacing the deleted word no with the letter planning board, PB. Is the petitioner here to speak?
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Robert Peterson, Senior, 314 Main Street, Wilmington, Mass. For the petitioner, Margaret McKenna and her family. Mr. Chairman, would it be allowable to the chair if we discussed Articles 62 and 63 together?
I would welcome that.
Mr. Chairman, as I indicated earlier, I represent Mrs. McKenna relative to her desire to move her existing funeral home, Nichols Funeral Home, to the property located at, I believe it is 168 to 172 Middlesex Avenue. John, if we can go to that slide. The property in question, if you can go back to the one before, thank you, John. The property in question was McMahon's Funeral Home for 54 years until the late 1970s when it closed. If we can go, John, to the assessors parcel showing the parcels, if I think it's down. Mr. Chairman, parcel 168 is the property known as 168 and 172 Middlesex Avenue. As you can see by the driveways and access points shown both on parcel 168 and 176. At one time, that was one parcel. All three buildings were owned by the McMahons, and that property was used, as I indicated a few moments ago, for 54 years as a funeral home. If you look to the top upper right of that screen, parcel 187, at the corner of Middlesex and Wildwood, is the current location of Nichols Funeral Home. Mrs. McKenna would like to relocate the funeral home to 168, 172 Middlesex Avenue. The problem with that proposal currently, Mr. Chairman, is this is an R10 district, and a funeral home is specifically prohibited in an R10 district. So in order to try to alleviate that issue and to give Mrs. McKenna the opportunity that she seeks to relocate the funeral home, I have submitted two articles. One would allow a funeral home by special permit from the planning board in an R10 zone. Now, obviously, this parcel, which contains about 1.5 acres of land, would probably be the only R10 parcel in Wilmington that would be amenable to such use. In the second article I have submitted on behalf of Mrs. McKenna, Mr. Chairman, would change the designation of this property from R10 to neighborhood mixed use. I do have some concerns about the willingness of the Attorney General to uphold that article. And I have concerns about it being designated as spot zoning. Thus, the second article, which would allow by special permit from the planning board, a funeral home in an R10 zone. So I tried to get as creative as I could to give Mrs. McKenna the opportunity to move the funeral home. And from a distance perspective, Mr. Chairman, Mrs. McKenna would be moving that funeral home approximately 300 feet.
Okay. Is that it, Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, she would raise the existing buildings and a new funeral home would be constructed on that site. It does have significant advantages to Mrs. McKenna over the existing site. There is substantially more parking on this site than there is at the existing funeral home. There is very little parking at the existing funeral home. And most of Mrs. McKenna's parking is done in the rear library parking lot. This would allow her to have significant on-site parking as opposed to off-site parking.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, we do have a caller.
Okay, let him go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Sure, this is Paul Malorani, and I reside at 176 Middlesex Ave. I'm direct abutter to this project, and I just want to rise in favor of this project. I think this would be a betterment to the community, this district, this area of town, compared to what's been there for so many years. I can only see this as just bettering the town.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Neill, is there anyone else?
There is not, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I make just one last comment?
Yes.
I think that Mrs. McKenna provides a tremendous service to the town and does a tremendous job at it. And given the fact that this parcel was used for over half a century as a funeral home, despite its current zoning classification, the relocation of the funeral home from its existing location to the proposed location would be beneficial not only to her business, but to the town in general.
Okay, thank you. There's no more questions or comments. We'll move on to Article 64. Article 64, I don't think I'll read this whole one. In summary, the article proposes to change the town's pet care facility use. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw of the town of Wilmington as follows by amending section 3.519, table 1, principal use regulations as follows. Is the petitioner here for this article?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, Michael Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. My neck's a little sore from bending over here on these papers, so go ahead.
So if I could ask Mr. O'Neill to pull up the slides that we had provided. Mr. Chairman, let me first, just for the record, say that I'm representing a prospective operator of a pet care facility here in Wilmington, who's an established business in another town, and has been looking in and trying to secure a location in some of the areas right off of Route 93, which she believes would be beneficial not only to her business, but convenient for her customers, and many of whom already reside in Wilmington. So that the principal use regulations table that is on the screen is the current use table, and those handwritten notes are mine, and it's really just indicating that the essence of the proposed article is to eliminate pet care facilities as they're defined in the bylaw from the neighborhood mixed use district, and at the same time to allow them in the highway industrial district by way of a planning board special permit. Mr. O'Neill, if you could pull up the next slide. You might recall, Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board, that pet care facilities were specifically defined and regulated just a few years back when there was a pretty sizable proposed facility to be located along in the neighborhood mixed use district at the intersection of Lowell Street and Woburn Street. It's my understanding that development just didn't proceed. And so it seems that the pet care facility, while it wisely limited some of those bigger operations through the bylaw, make it unduly burdensome for a slightly smaller operation to successfully operate a pet care facility. So we did want to reduce the minimum size from, next slide, please, Mr. O'Neill, from 15,000 square feet down to 3, really making it viable for a tenant in one of these larger box buildings that are located in or around Route 93 to be able to rent space, and where appropriate to have some exterior space if necessary. We also, Mr. Chairman, were mindful of the fact that there are many pet-related businesses that currently operate in Wilmington and elsewhere, which provide such that, from a pet store that provides pet products on a retail for sale on a retail basis, to dog grooming service, to veterinary services. So we certainly didn't want to render any of those smaller and more limited businesses. We didn't want to render them non-conforming. So the bylaw, as it's proposed, also defines a pet care facility as having at least 3 of the following uses. And those uses include, as I mentioned, veterinary care services, grooming services, retail pet sales, but also boarding and training services. So the proposed bylaw change that is before you is an attempt to facilitate pet care facilities in the highway industrial district without creating a burden on some of the current businesses that offer more limited scope of services.
I have any questions or comments from anybody?
Lee Martinson, 99 Marion Street. Mr. Newhouse, why take it out of the neighborhood mixed use district? Why not just add it to highway industrial with your changes?
The sense that I got from talking it over with a few people was that these larger pet care facilities, that if they're offering services like training and quote doggy daycare, the boarding services, that some of the residential districts might not be the best place. Frankly, that doesn't affect my client's business plan, but based on those comments, while we were making changes, we put that in. We also were mindful of the idea that if we include that in the petition, that by way of an amendment, that change could be eliminated and it would be within the scope of the article that's presented in the warrant. So we were mindful of that parliamentary possibility when we put the article together.
Thank you.
I think so. To add to that a little bit, I think originally when we did this, we haven't gotten anybody to come in. So I think this change was to kind of help to try to move this along.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Does anyone else have a question? Mr. O'Neill, you're up. Is anyone calling in?
No calls, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Well, if there aren't any more questions or comments, I will now turn the public hearing back over to the Chair of the Finance Committee. The Planning Board will move into a separate meeting to discuss recommendations on the articles presented. To listen to the Planning Board meeting, please refer to the information on the Planning Board agenda posted on the town's website. All yours, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you. This is Teresa Manganelli, Vice Chair. And although I didn't open the meeting, I will be continuing it.
Okay.
At the request of Mr. Doherty. Okay, so we'll proceed with the articles now in the order that they appear in the warrant. Article 1 would be concerning the votes taken for the offices available. Article 2, to hear reports of committees and act thereon. Will there be any reports, Mr. Ho?
No, Madam Chair, there will not.
Okay, great. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the purpose of paying unpaid bills of previous years or take any other action related thereto.
Madam Chair, there are 3 bills that we're looking at dealing with through this article. These are bills that were incurred in prior fiscal years. This periodically happens either because the bills were not, the services were incurred in a prior fiscal year, but the bills were not received in that fiscal year. We have 3 bills totaling $1,725.51. They all are related to medical services.
Okay, thank you. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer collector with the approval of the selectmen to enter into an agreement under the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53F of the Massachusetts General Laws with one or more banks doing business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts during fiscal year 2022 for a term not to exceed 3 years, which will permit the town of Wilmington to maintain funds on deposit with such institutions in return for said institutions providing banking services, or to take any other action related thereto. Mr. Hull?
Madam Chair, this article has been a standard bearer, if you will, for many years on the warrant. It allows the treasurer in exchange for, as you noted, having funds on deposit to receive certain banking services and is a necessary part of our operations.
Do you remember it? Thank you. Article 5, to see how much money the town will appropriate for the expenses of the town and the salaries of several town officers and departments, and determine how the same shall be raised, whether by taxation, transfer from available funds or otherwise, or take any other action related thereto.
Madam Chair, I'll just highlight where we stand in terms of the budget and would note a couple of changes that I will speak to as we go through. So as you know, when the budget was presented, when I presented the budget back in January, the total requested appropriation was $119,852,135. And that amount is being proposed to be modified slightly by adding $7,500, which I'll explain in a few minutes. So the total proposed budget would be $119,859,635. And just going through some of the major categories here in terms of changes, I would note that the town this year is proposing to spend $2,252,000 from the free cash on various capital items that we'll get to as we go through the warrant. Also, there is a proposal for 2 additional positions, one being a sergeant and the other being a custodian. As were talked about during the budget hearings, these are 2 additional positions. Also, I would note that we're looking at, in terms of other increases, increasing the amount for overtime in the dispatch budget. The increase there is proposed as a result of significant increases in overtime that we've seen this year. Again, we talked about this during the budget hearings, but in part because dispatch to some measure serves as a farm system, if you will, for personnel that want to get into either police or fire, and dispatch oftentimes is their first stop. So we have on a regular basis people that are in that category for a period of time and then move on. So there's a frequent level of turnover. So we're looking to address that by means of increasing the overtime. On the fire, in the fire department, as you know, we were looking to address overtime in the current fiscal year by adding personnel. And the intent is to still address overtime, but given a number of factors here, including COVID and the inability to get personnel through the academies and ultimately hired, our overtime budget for this current fiscal year will exceed the appropriation. And so we're recommending an increase in the overtime budget for the coming fiscal year. This is also one category, one area where I would note the change that I referenced earlier for $7,500. Just within the last week and a half or two, I was contacted by Chief Kavanaugh indicating that on one of his line items for emergency and medical supplies, there's a category in there for purchasing oxygen for the Scott packs that firefighters use. Their longtime vendor went out of business. The budget amount for the oxygen was $2,700. His department has looked at alternative vendors, and it appears the best price they can get for the supply they need is going to be an additional $7,500. And so as a result, that is why we are asking for $7,500 to be added to the original request. Also, with regard to employee retirement and sick leave, I would just note that this category is there to anticipate individuals who are retiring, and in the contracts that each of them have, there are provisions that allow for the employees to buy back, if you will, unused sick days at a set rate. So we're increasing that in anticipation of some retirees The insurance, on a positive note, at least on the health insurance side, is only going up by about 1%. Although we do believe that part of that is because of the COVID situation. A lot of people are not pursuing elective surgeries or medical treatments that they might otherwise pursue. But at the moment, we seem to be doing well on the health insurance side. We are looking at some increases, though, in our other categories of insurance, including workers' comp, our professional liability. Unfortunately, we've had some claims that have driven that up, so we're looking at increases in that category. Public Works, I would just note on the positive side here, we're looking at a decrease of 163,000, due in large part to the fact that we are no longer paying a rental fee for the collection vehicles. When we first went into the contract with Casella, that contract was authorized through town meeting last year. The vendor, for about, I believe, about 6 months or so, because they did not have the vehicles on hand, there was a rental fee associated with the vehicles for the first several months until their trucks that they had ordered were in place. That is currently the case, so there's a decrease there of 163,000. Other categories, the one category of note I would just mention is looking at the schools. We have, as you know, the Wilmington school budget is slated to increase by 2.5%, totaling $1,093,052. Shawshene Tech, based upon my conversation with Superintendent Jackson back in early January, mid-January, he was noting that Wilmington's enrollment was going to be going up by about 29 students. As a consequence, he was suggesting an increase of about a little over 12%, which we factored into the budget. And the recommended amount was $5,480,000. I'm sorry, $5,400,000. That was the recommended budget. As you know, based upon the Shawshene Tech's presentation to the Finance Committee, the amount that is actually being requested at this moment is $5,480,372. So it is above the amount that I was recommending. However, again, based upon conversations with the superintendent and the business manager, it's my understanding that their excess and deficiencies amount, which is essentially similar to our free cash, they're looking to get that certified. They believe it'll be about $1 million. And once that is certified, the plan is to distribute that to the 5-member communities. So at the moment, I'm comfortable that after all is said and done and that excess and deficiency money is distributed, that we will still be okay with the number that we're proposing. Just to continue on, some other categories here, we're seeing our retirement assessment increase by a little over $200,000, $207,430, which is actually a lesser increase this year than in prior years. Again, on a positive note, kind of an offset, if you will, we've seen a substantial decrease in our debt. And this, in no small part, goes to the efforts of Brian Perry, and certainly there were a number of folks involved, Karen Rashis, Carrie Coburn-Dion, Valerie Gingrich, in working to refinance the high school debt. So between that and some other debt that is being reduced. The overall debt cost is decreasing by almost 500,000, 497,882. So that's helping to offset some of the increases. Again, some offsets on that we're able to account for this year. There's a decrease expected in our heating costs of about $106,000. The assessor's office, because we completed our reval process last year, we're seeing almost $100,000 reduction in their budget. And so that helps us out as well. And I would just note for anyone that may be interested, as the free cash number as of 7/1/2020 was $25,158,954. And as I said, we're using a little over $2 million on that to pay for some capital items.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions concerning any of the articles that we were just speaking of? And do we have any calls coming in?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next page. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the purchase of new and/or replacement capital equipment, including but not limited to the following items, and further to authorize the sale, trade-in, conveyance, or other disposition of any equipment being so replaced. Such funds to be spent by the town department so indicated with the approval of the town manager, and to the extent set forth in Chapter 592 of the Acts of 1950, the Board of Selectmen as follows. The Police Department, for the purchase of 2 replacement police cruisers. Do we have a dollar value on that, Mr. Hull?
Yes, the dollar value is $100,000.
Thank you. The Fire Department, purchase of 1 reserve pumper.
The dollar value is $150,000, and the proposal is to use free cash.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, purchase of 1 heavy-duty wheeled excavator to be assigned to the Highway Division.
The proposed sum is $235,000 to be taken from free cash.
Okay. Purchase of 1 heavy-duty 1-ton dump body truck with plow to be assigned to the Highway Division.
The amount here is $85,000.
Purchase of 1 sidewalk plow to be assigned to the Highway Division.
This amount is $175,000 proposed to be drawn from free cash.
Okay, purchase of 1 asphalt hot box trailer to be assigned to the Highway Division.
$42,000.
Okay, in the School Department, purchase of 1 replacement handicap accessible wheelchair minivan.
The proposed amount, $42,000.
Thank you. Or take any other action related thereto. Does anybody have any questions concerning these specific items? No? Okay, we'll move on. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the purchase of 8 new voting machines, or take any other action related thereto.
The total cost is projected to be $45,000. However, we do have $10,000 in a election from an election grant fund that is available. So we are looking to use that as an offset. So the amount we're seeking in terms of appropriation is $35,000. The current voting machines are a 2000 model that were purchased in 2004. We believe it's time to purchase new voting machines, and there's an expectation as a consequence of the 2020 census that a 7th precinct will be added. There's a number, a ceiling, if you will, for each district in terms of the number of individuals that can reside in each district. And so we believe we're on the cusp of going over, and we'll need a 7th district or 7th precinct rather. So between the 7 precincts, and it's typical that we have a reserve machine on account in the event one goes down. That's the rationale for 8 voting machines.
Okay, thank you. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the Information Technology Department to complete the replacement of a VoIP phone systems at all municipal buildings, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
Madam Chair, this the amount here is $70,000, and this is to replace a voice over IP or voice over internet protocol system that we already have, and this is for the public safety and municipal offices. I would note that this is not affecting the emergency call system, but the non-emergency call system on the excuse me, on the public safety side, and we'll change out that system.
Okay, thank you. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the Information Technology Department to purchase replacement service for the town hall and public safety building, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The amount proposed here is $35,000. The IT director is recommending that we should remain on a 4-year replacement cycle. The last time these were replaced was in 2018.
Thank you. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the Information Technology Department to purchase 4 mobile computers, antennas, and appropriate mounting to be installed in police vehicles, cruisers, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The proposed amount here is $30,000, and this is these mobile units are really critical to their operation. It's essentially their work platform, if you will, while they're in the cruisers, allows them to, when necessary, call up information on any number of items associated with vehicles that they may see on the street, other essentially data that they may require.
Thank you. Any questions? And any calls from the public?
Madam Chair, there are no callers.
Okay, thank you. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the second phase of the upgrade of critical radio communications infrastructure and equipment in the Public Safety Dispatch Center and related and ancillary facilities to be utilized by dispatch, fire, and police, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
Madam Chair, this request is for $450,000. This is proposed from free cash. You'll recall that this same amount was requested last year. This is part of a 3-year proposal to upgrade the communication system that police, fire, and dispatch rely upon, everything from antennas to essentially all of their operating systems that allow dispatch to interact with police and fire.
Okay, thank you. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to complete the replacement of the fire radio box alarm receivers and fire station alerting system at the Public Safety Building, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action excuse me, related thereto.
The requested amount is 55,000, and this also is a continuation of work that was started in fiscal 20 to make upgrades to their fire alarm system and the public safety dispatch system.
Thank you. Article 13. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the design phase to replace approximately 24,000 of roofing at the Shawshene School, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested sum is 85,000. This is the first step in terms of completing the engineering for the roof replacement and preparing specifications and a cost estimate so that in the subsequent year, we would go out for construction funding or funding for the roof itself.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on any?
Bernie.
Oh, hi, Bernie.
Yeah. Is that for the full roof?
Yes, it is. So it's 24,000 square feet. It's the entire roof.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And John, you'll let me know if anyone from the public is trying to reach us, please.
I will, Madam Chair.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt me.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
do a clarification on that last question?
Yes, please do.
There is a section of roof that's over the gymnasium that was completed in 2015. That section will not be replaced. This is for the remainder of the roof to be done. So there is one small section that has already been completed.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, to Article 14. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the replacement of ceiling tile at the Woburn Street School, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The cost here is $527,000, and it is proposed to be taken from free cash. These are suspended ceiling tiles, asbestos-containing tiles. They don't present any hazard to occupants right now, but it does create some challenges when they're trying to do work above the ceiling tiles, whether it's running cable or any other items. So this would remove that asbestos-containing tile.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Probably to Mr. Hooper. Are you going to try to seek any funding out of the MSBA program for replacements?
For the 50,000 square feet of ACM,
The ceiling tile and anything really roofing repairs going forward? I know they have a program that towns can apply for.
I will have to look to see if they, it's a replacement, it's not a repair, but I will have to look into it and see what they have. I'll have to work with the school department on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on to Article 15. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the payment of the remaining amortized loan on the trash and recycling barrels, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is for $365,000 to be drawn from free cash. When the town first contracted with Russell Disposal at the time, the contract was a 10-year contract for collection of recycling and trash. And this was the first time we went to a curbside collection process. So in order to do that, we had to provide for the bins that everyone has now, the full 7,800 or so households in Wilmington for both trash and recycling. And so the decision at the time was to finance the cost of those barrels over 10 years. As you know, 5 years into the contract, effective at the end of last fiscal year, Russell indicated to us they could no longer provide the services, but they did allow us to continue the payment plan for these barrels, we've decided that it's better to just pay it off and as opposed to continuing the annual payments on the barrels.
Thank you. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to purchase robotic total station survey equipment to replace total station survey equipment for the engineering division, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The proposed amount here is $25,500. This replaces equipment that's 12 years old. And as you know, the engineering department, one of their fundamental functions, or certainly a key function, is survey work. And this new equipment will be more precise and reliable.
Thank you. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to fund the traffic engineering design of intersection signal improvement at the intersection of Shawshene Avenue, Hopkins Street, and Lake Street, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested amount is $25,000. This is just for the engineering piece. And then if this is approved, the signals would be replaced in the subsequent, with a subsequent appropriation.
Okay. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the installation of traffic signal detection at the intersection of Salem Street, Route 62, and Woburn Street, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The sum here is $20,000, and this is something we're moving to in a number of intersections. It was recently done at Federal and Middlesex, but there are these eyes, so to speak, in the intersection fixtures that will identify when traffic is in a particular leg of the intersection, so that it'll prompt the signals to change and allow that traffic to get through. So it reduces the backups in intersections.
Well, we're all for that. Does anybody have any questions on those most recent articles? No? Okay, we'll continue on. Article 19. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the reconstruction of tennis basketball courts at Shawshene School, including engineering design and any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is for $350,000. This is, so the engineering work was done previously, and this is actually the reconstruction of the courts. There's been a lot of cracking. We've done crack sealing over the years, and at this point we need to do the full reconstruction. We're also looking to reconfigure the courts a bit. Right now there are 3 tennis courts and 1 basketball court. The plan would be to have 2 basketball courts and 2 tennis courts.
Okay, great. 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the design and engineering costs to replace the Frank Kelly track surface at Alumni Stadium, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is for $40,000. This is the engineering work. There's been some areas of concern that were identified with regard to the track in terms of depressions. The track was resurfaced when the high school project was done, but we believe there may be some underlying circumstances there. So this would be the engineering associated with that, and then we would seek for appropriation in the subsequent year for the actual reconstruction of the track.
So if I understand correctly, we resurfaced the track when we put in the new high school, but now we may have to replace the entire track.
That's right. We may have to replace it.
Question?
Yes, we could take some articles out of order if that is your request. We have people waiting, John?
We do have Christopher Stokes here for the article. I'm gonna find the number right now.
Article 51. And Article 45.
Madam Chair, before you do that, I think perhaps you had one of your members that had a question on this article with regard to the track.
Yeah, that was Bernie. Just wondering if you need to do any patching on that track for the kids to use it. Do you have any idea?
I would defer to Mike Woods on that.
Bernie, the track is in well enough shape that where they can use it for this coming year. We just want to get to a certain section that's actually starting to fail, but it'll survive for another year. We just want to get that fixed before it falls apart and minimize the amount of construction costs to replace it.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so we have a request to take an article out of order, take 2 articles out of order, as we do have the petitioners waiting in queue to get on to the meeting. So unless there's any objection, we'll go with Article 45. And is the petitioner with us?
Which one is 45?
So 45 would be the library trustees.
Madam Chair, I can speak to this one if you'd like. This is a request by the Library Board of Trustees to name the first floor meeting room at the Memorial Library, the Barbara Johnson Room. You may recall that Ms. Johnson made the state of Ms. Johnson made a donation to the library of, I believe it was about $385,000. She lived in Wilmington in her early years, was very passionate about the library, and then later moved out to the West Coast. But in light of the fact that this donation was made for anyone who was in the library, I guess pre-COVID, you'll note that there were a couple of rooms that they were able to make as a result of the funds provided for through this this donation.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe the request also included Article 51, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is that petitioner
He is.
with us? Okay, let me make sure I keep all my articles together so that we don't end up missing half of the business. Okay, so Article 51, to see if the town will vote to request the state legislator to authorize Christopher Stokes have his results for the 2021 and all future results if so needed, Massachusetts Civil Service firefighter exam be allowed for employment without regard to the applicant's age as a firefighter in the town of Wilmington. Notwithstanding the provisions of the general laws, rules, regulations to the contrary regulating the age of applicant, provided he meets all other requirements, he shall be eligible for certification and appoint to the Wilmington Fire Department by the appointing authority, regardless of his age, or take any other action related thereto. And the petitioner is here.
Good evening. This is Christopher Stokes, 12 Harold Avenue.
Good
Hi.
evening. Would you like to
So
speak
yeah,
on this?
sure. I'm very excited. My family has moved to the town of Wilmington. I have 3 children who will grow up in this town. I am a longtime CrossFit coach. So Usually what that means to people is that I work out a lot and I'm in very good shape. But I was a college athlete my whole life, grew up in the Boston area, and Wilmington is now my home. And I've been seeking out options. I'm going to be chasing down a paramedic degree or a paramedic certification. And I've spoken with Chief Kavanaugh about the opportunity of joining the Wilmington Fire Department. And the age issue came up, and he said, given the shape I'm in and the things I want to do, that this is an action I should try to take. So that's why I'm here now.
Is Chief Kavanaugh here? I thought I saw him here earlier. No? Okay.
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Chief, how are we doing?
How are you, Madam Chairwoman?
Would you
So
like to speak to this?
Yeah, I did meet with Mr. Stokes about a month and a half, 2 months ago. He come by the firehouse and had discussed with me the possibility of joining the Wilmington Fire Department. I did explain to him that in the past, this is typically the way that we would go about getting an age waiver through the town, since Wilmington does not take anyone past the age of 31. So that's why he's here. I think, if he goes through the channels and presented the opportunity on the list, if we have an opening, I'd be more than happy to take him onto the department.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Does
Thank you, Madam
anybody have
Chair.
any questions or comments regarding this article?
Nope, just good luck, Christopher. Thanks for hanging around for 2.5 hours.
You got it. Thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Chair,
Yes,
Kevin Kyra, there's another article, number 53, and I know Janet Ingram's been patiently waiting as well.
yes,
Can
I
we
was
take
just going to
article out
that.
of order? All right, thank you.
No, that's totally fine. I was just given a note to go to that.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, so it's going to take a village to get through this night. So Article 53, to see if the town will vote to name the field behind the North Intermediate School in memory and in honor of Frank S. Lentini, the teacher and coach, who in 1964 developed the first soccer program for Wilmington High School that continues today, or take any other action related thereto. And I understand Janet Ingram is in queue.
Yes, hello, everyone. Janet Ingram, 30.
Hi, Janet.
Hey, Teresa. 33 Drive. Thank you for this opportunity. I feel very strongly that honoring Mr. Frank Lentini is a very appropriate thing to do. In 1964, Mr. Lentini introduced soccer to Wilmington High School, first as a club team for 2 years, and he continued to raise the program. He was with us as a soccer coach until 1976. His 8-year record was 81 wins, 21 ties, and 15 losses. He brought our team to 3 Northern Soccer League championships, as well as to have the honor to play at Nickerson Field at Boston University in the semifinals. And that speaks of him just as the soccer coach. That doesn't speak of him as the teacher and the man who had such a huge impact on so many of his soccer players as well as students here in Wilmington. And I feel that it's, would be a great way to honor him is by naming that field behind the North Intermediate School where he started our soccer program. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Janet.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so if nobody has any questions, at the moment, we'll go back to our original lineup, and we would be on Article 21. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to fund phased cemetery development, including monument footings, improvements to turf and fencing, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested amount here is $15,000.
Okay. Thank you. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to comply with the municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4 requirement as part of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, including design and engineering costs and any other incidental and related costs or expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested amount here is $50,000. This is an amount that you've seen in prior years and will continue to see for a number of years in order to maintain the permit that we're required to have for stormwater discharge.
Okay. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from department receipts or user fees a sum of money to operate the Department of Public Works Sewer Division enterprise, or take any other action related thereto.
The amount requested here is $3,523,464. And this is from the enterprise fund. You'll recall a couple of town meetings ago, the town established an enterprise system so that the money that is paid by companies or homeowners that are connected to the sewer system, those funds go into this enterprise account and pay for the costs. Most of the cost is associated with the MWRA, Mass Water Resources Authority assessment. And then we also have one full-time employee and a couple of attendants at the septic disposal station.
Okay, thank you. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available department receipts or user fees, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to relocate underground control panel at Main Street, Route 38 sewer pump station, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The sum here is $40,000, and this would also come from the sewer enterprise account.
Okay. Article 25. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available department receipts or user fees, or pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to replace the pump at Shawshene Commons Pump Station, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The sum is $25,000, and again, this sum would come from the enterprise account for sewer.
Article 26, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $7,929.70 or such other amount as town meeting may approve from the Transportation Infrastructure Receipts Reserve account for the purpose of roadways surface crack sealing, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
Just by way of information, this sum is received from the state, and the sum is generated by the Lyft and Uber receipts from folks who use those services.
Okay, are there any questions on any of these articles? None? Okay, we'll continue on Article 27. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement of existing switches at the middle school, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested sum is $90,000, and this is part of a 5-year technology plan that the school has for replacing these switches.
Thank you. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement of existing PCs in the Wilmington High School labs, including any incidental costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The requested amount is $68,000, and this is to replace computers that are 7 years old.
Okay, Article 29, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement and/or upgrade of security servers for the Wilmington Public Schools, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is for $30,000.
Thank you. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the purchase of replacement projectors for the elementary schools, including any incidental or related costs, or take any other action related thereto.
This request is for $100,000. The original request was $200,000, but the expectation is they will be seeking a similar amount in the subsequent fiscal year.
Article 31, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise a portion of the property or interest therein, including but not limited to a leasehold interest located at 201 Lowell Street, specifically land north of Maple Meadow Brook, bordered by Lowell Street to the east and Yentl Farm Recreation Facility to the west, and 71 Lowell Street to the north, consisting of approximately 8.9 acres of land, including tennis courts and ball fields, for general municipal and recreation purposes, including possible extension of the Yentl Farm Recreation Facility, as determined by the Board of Selectmen to be in the best interest of the town. And further, to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the acquisition of such property and structures thereon, or interest therein, including all costs incidental and related thereto. And further, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take such actions and execute such documents and agreements as are necessary to effectuate the purposes of this article, or take any other action related thereto.
So in summary, this would give the Board of Selectmen the authorization to either acquire in full interest or perhaps a lease the courts that I'm sure folks are familiar with on Lowell Street, the tennis courts there, as well as the ball fields that Textron is actually Textron property. We don't have a sum at this point. There is an appraiser that's been contracted with to evaluate the property and provide the town with an appraisal, and then we'll go forward if this article is authorized. Just as a point of on this, if in fact the town decides to pursue acquisition of the property, I would expect, obviously subject to the board's decision, but that we would be looking to use free cash for that purpose.
Are there any questions concerning this article or any of the previous ones?
Yeah, Bernie,
Go ahead, Bernie.
have there been any discussions with Textron? Are they interested in selling the property or leasing it?
At present, they are not. They are in the discussions themselves with National Development is the name of the outfit to purchase the not all the property, but significant portion of the property there that would include this area, something in the order of 30 or 34 acres of the property.
So they've sold off some of the property though, and this portion belongs to the new owners.
Well, it's to my knowledge, anyways, has not been sold yet. It's my understanding that National Development is in the due diligence phase, if you will, and there's an expectation that a purchase and sale is imminent.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, Article 32. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, money to deposit in the other post-employment liability trust fund establish in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 20, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is for $1 million. This would be from the tax levy to, again, put funds into this OPEB account. We've been doing this, as you know, for a number of years. And as of the last town meeting, June 27th, with the $1 million that was appropriated at that time, we had over $7 million in this account to address our OPEB liability.
Okay, thank you. Article 33. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to deposit in the Capital Stabilization Fund as established by vote on Article 23 at the April 27th, 1991 annual town meeting, or take any other action related thereto.
The request here is to direct $1 million, again, through the tax levy to add to our capital stabilization account. This is a deliberate effort that's been taking place now for several years to build up our reserves in anticipation of the very numerous projects that are being discussed now. As of 6/30/2020, we had just over $15 million in that account, and that didn't include the $1 million that was appropriated at the last town meeting. So essentially over 16 million in that account as of now.
Okay. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to pay the Middlesex Retirement System in addition to the annual assessment, or take up any other action related thereto.
This again is another effort to try to address some liabilities the town has. We've been doing this now for several years. The request is $1.5 million from the tax levy to essentially pay in advance for our part of our retirement assessment.
Okay, Article 35. To see what sum the town will vote to transfer into various line items of the fiscal year 2021 budget from other line items of said budget and from other available funds, or take any other action related thereto.
As is typical at this point in time, we don't have specific figures here. We will, as we get to town meeting or prior to town meeting, but certainly as we've talked about in prior finance committee meetings, some of the areas that we anticipate budget overages are the fire overtime, dispatch overtime. Those are really the primary items at this point, and we'll be looking to either make transfers from other line items that have balances, or we may be looking to come to the finance committee and ask for transfers from the reserve. But this number we'll have a number before town meeting.
Okay, great. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money for the funding of a 4th of July celebration, or take any other action related thereto.
This also, as you recall, is a long-standing contribution to the July 4th activities. The sum is being put in here again this year to offset costs predominantly from police overtime. It is not clear at this moment whether there will be a July 4th presentation. I've had some conversations, communications with the chair of the committee, and I'm told that they will not have a decision until May. But if in fact they go forward, these funds, if appropriated, would be available.
Excuse me, Mr. Howe, what was the dollar amount?
Would be $50,000.
Thank you. Article 37, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the observance of Memorial Day and Veterans Day, or take any other action related thereto.
The sum proposed here is $8,000.
Thank you. Article 38, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute the sum of $750 each, a total of $1,500, for the purpose of renewing under the authority of Section 9 of Chapter 40 of the General Laws as amended, the lease of A, Veterans of Foreign Wars Clubhouse for the purpose of providing suitable headquarters for the Nee Ellsworth Post 2458 of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. B, American Legion Clubhouse, Inc., for the purpose of providing suitable headquarters for the Wilmington Post 136 of the American Legion, or take any other action related thereto. And the amount is $1,500. Article 39, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from the PEG Access and Cable Related Special Revenue Fund a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen for PEG Access Services pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F, 3 1/4, or take any other action related thereto.
You may recall a few years ago, at the advice of council, there was this provision that was accepted by the town to establish this means for handling the PEG access money. So when individuals who subscribe to Verizon or Comcast for their basic, their cable service, there's a fee of 5% that goes into this, that is paid actually to the town, and those funds go into this account. It's very similar to an enterprise fund in that, in this case, WCTV makes the request of the town, and on a quarterly basis, the amounts that are received from Verizon and Comcast are turned over to them based upon the receipts that we've seen in the last couple of years. The amount that we would recommend here as the ceiling would be $525,000. Again, these are not coming from the tax levy, but from the cable fees.
Okay, thank you. Article 40, to see if the town will vote to determine the spending limits for revolving accounts established pursuant to Section 53E1/2 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws and Section 29 of Chapter 3 of the Town of Wilmington Inhabitant Bylaws for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending on June 30th, 2022, as follows, or take any other action related thereto. So there's a little chart here concerning compost bin revolving fund. Spending authority limit is $4,500, and subsurface sewer disposal upgrade revolving fund, and the spending authority limit for that is $200,000. Are there any questions or comments? No? Okay, continuing on. Article 41, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to operate the public rink enterprise or take any other action related thereto.
Back in 2014, via a special town meeting, you'll recall that the town authorized the sum of money to purchase the Restucia rink, and it also set up an enterprise account with the expectation at the time that we would purchase the rink and we would collect funds for sale of ice time to support the rink, and the amount that was put in place at the time was $526,000. This has really been carried forward as a placeholder of sorts. There's really no ability for us to act upon this at this point because clearly we don't own the Ristusha rink. And there's no, I know sometimes there's a lot of questions that come up on this, but there is no appropriation here from property taxes. This would, similar to the enterprise fund we talked about earlier with the sewer system, this would simply set a ceiling of up to $526,000 in the event that we owned the rink and that we were able to charge fees and collect money. We would be able to expend up to $526,000 for hockey ice rink purposes.
Okay, thank you. Article 42, to see if the town will vote to name the corner of Federal Street and Liberty Street as Edward J. Gillis Memorial Corner in the memory and honor of Edward J. Gillis, who served his country honorably in the Navy Seabees, having served in the Pacific, stopping at Iwo Jima, and to have a sign installed to commemorate the same, or take any other action related thereto.
So this is certainly, as all of these articles have, but this one in particular was sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Gillis was a lifelong resident of Wilmington, passed away, I believe he was in his early 90s, but had been a part of the town for all those years. And this is, you'll recall a few years ago, William Harrison, who was another individual that served his country. There was a sign at Adams Street and Church Street. And so the same approach is being proposed here to have a sign established in his honor.
Thank you. Article 43, to see if the town will vote to adopt Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, which will provide that a member of any board, committee, or commission, when holding an adjudicatory hearing, shall not be disqualified from voting in the matter solely due to that member's absence from no more than a single session of the hearing at which testimony or other evidence is received. This is provided that before any such vote, the member shall certify in writing that he/she has examined all evidence received at the missed session, which evidence shall include an audio or video recording of the missed session or a transcript thereof. The written certification shall be part of the record of the hearing or take any other action related thereto.
Madam Chair, this is also referenced as the Mullen Rule, but it basically provides a measure of flexibility for members of boards, permit granting boards. The one that comes to mind in particular is the Board of Appeals. As you know, oftentimes in these permit granting situations, an applicant will come before the Board of Appeals and the hearing is opened, and it may take several meetings for that hearing to be played out, if you will. And in the absence of this law, individuals who are sitting on that hearing, if for whatever reason one member is unable to make that meeting, then they are not currently able to vote when a decision needs to be rendered. And in some cases, particularly with the Board of Appeals, there are instances where a supermajority is required for a special permit, for example. And so this would allow for, in that circumstance, if a member happens to miss a meeting for whatever reason, as long as they're able to review the transcript of the tape and certify to that effect, and it's only one meeting, they could continue to be present at the subsequent meetings and then vote when it comes time to doing so.
Okay, thank you. And I believe the final article for tonight is Article 44. To see if the town will vote to amend the first line of Inhabitant Bylaw, Chapter 5, Section 55 to read, Section 55, Traveling Animal Acts, or take any other action related thereto.
This is really intended to correct just a, for lack of a better description, clerical error, if you will, in terms of the reference that was made to the article. So it's intended as a housekeeping measure.
Okay. All right, are there any questions from any of the members here tonight? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've covered all the articles.
Bernie,
Hi, Bernie.
my compliments. It was a long night and a lot of reading. And unfortunately, we couldn't share it as we usually do. So,
I know.
but
Thank
you did a great job.
Thank you
I
very
second
much.
that.
Wow, thank you very much. Okay, I do have one question for you, Mr. Hull. It just occurred to me because I myself was kind of forgetting about it. We have a change in the time of the town meeting this year to 9 a.m.
Yes.
Are there plans to have some kind of public service announcement regarding that?
There is.
We have a
and-
change in venue as well.
Yes, so it's certainly been announced at all the selectmen's meetings. In fact, just today, I spoke with Christine Caggiano, who's been the point person, so to speak, on getting some of this information out. And there's a postcard that's going to be mailed out. We're taking an approach similar to what was done when we had the town meeting at the ball field last year. We're going to be using the DPW and police signs to put out, in advance. It's been put out on Town Topics. We are also going to put it on the Rotary board, use the school bulletin board in front of the Roman House. So we're also going to be using the reverse 911. So we're taking all those measures to try to make sure that people understand the meeting time has changed and the venue has changed.
Great. Awesome. All right. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, or wish to speak on anything regarding these articles tonight?
Ms. Manganelli, yeah, just to add to Mr. Hull's comments, so the front cover of the recommendations of the Finance Committee and Planning Board is also going to refer to the change in time and location for town meeting. And the elderly services, the library, and the recreational email alerting systems are going to be sending that information to subscribers. And I believe that a conversation is taking place or will be taking place to get the school's email system to be doing the same as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so if there's no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Bernard Nally.
Second, Michelle Kincaid.
Thank you. Mr. Doherty is excused. Jonathan Dugas,
Yes.
Mary Ann Gillespie,
Yes.
Michelle Kincaid,
Yes.
Lee Martinson,
Yes.
Bernie Nally,
Yes.
Kevin Stokes,
Yes.
and Teresa Manganelli is a yes. All right, we'll meet again on Thursday evening to deliberate these articles, the Finance Committee. Until then, stay safe, and thank you all.
Good night.
Have a
Good
good
night,
night.
guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hull.
Good work, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.